I'm talking a little bit about the Fujifilm X-Pro2 today. This is not yet a review video, although I don't even know if I'm going to do a review video. There's about 500,000 reviews of this camera since it's quite a few years old now. So it doesn't do anyone any good for me to review it necessarily, but I do want to do some videos talking about it since this is a new camera to me, and this is still a relatively new form factor to me, since most of the time I'm shooting with a DSLR or SLR style form factor like the XH1 or XT3, XT2, XT4, and so on. I haven't labeled this video yet, but I need to incorporate X-Pro3 in the label or in the description because I want some X-Pro3 users to watch this video. I want some feedback from people who have used both the X-Pro2 and X-Pro3, and I'll explain more in a little bit. But as I've been using this camera more and more, there are many things that I've gotten used to, and many things that I've come to enjoy about using it. But there are a handful of things that I had expectations about that I wouldn't say were worse, they just were different. They turned out to be different than what I expected or hoped them to be. And one thing that sounds obvious, especially for people who use these line of cameras, the X-Pro cameras, was the fact that if you rely a lot on manual focus lenses, you're most likely going to be relying on the EVF a lot more than the optical viewfinder. When I initially got this, the idea of utilizing the optical viewfinder was really enticing. Almost the main reason why I wanted to give this camera a shot was the fact that it took me back to the analog vibe of film cameras, and even a little bit of the DSLR vibe, where you're looking, you're not looking at a screen when you look through the viewfinder. You're seeing whatever light is in the SLR situation, whatever light is coming through the lens and the mirror and the prism. In this situation, you're seeing whatever light is coming through the optical viewfinder itself. But that was enticing to me. And that's the reason, again, why I wanted to try it. One of the reasons. But once I got it, I started to realize that although I love the Fujifilm lenses, I also enjoy utilizing lenses like this 7 Artisans 35mm f1.2. These lenses like this and the TT Artisan lenses, they're amazing value for the price that you're paying, and I love using them. And obviously, you can use them perfectly on the X-Pro2, but in order to be able to frame the shot properly, since that lens doesn't move the frame lines in the optical viewfinder, you have to use the EVF, which is totally fine, not a huge deal. But then it gets back to that situation where if I'm just comparing utilizing the electronic viewfinder on an X-Pro2 or just utilizing the XH1, which already has a fantastic electronic viewfinder, then at that point it's what does the X-Pro2 have to offer that this doesn't give me? And that's my current state of decision making right now, is kind of debating, why I would use one over the other, what are the advantages of each. And I'm not here to present any conclusions necessarily. I just want to kind of inform you guys of where I'm at comparing these two form factors. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the XH1 specifically. It could be the XT3, XT4, and so on. But if we're just talking about using an EVF for most of your photography because you're using manual focus lenses, what does the X-Pro2 offer that these don't? Now, let's talk a little bit specifically about the X-Pro2, what I like so far. One of the things that's really been really nice and convenient that I didn't even think about before I bought it was how the entire back of the camera is laid out. It's pretty nice that everything is either at the top or on the right side of the camera operationally. So there's no playback, delete, button or anything over far on this side. So meaning when I have my hand here, my thumb can pretty much reach everything that I need to operate the camera on this side. And then obviously on the front, I already have, especially with manual focus, I have my hands ready to go up here, so I can adjust the focus switch and things like that. So operationally, it's laid out very, very well, and that is something that I've enjoyed so far that I didn't even really think about when I bought it. Like I said, my main reason for buying it was experiencing that OBF on the camera for the first time, and the layout of the buttons on the back has been really, really nice, and I've come to enjoy that. Bottom line is, I like the way, for the most part, the buttons are laid out on the back. It makes using it with your right hand very, very convenient, and you can make all the necessary adjustments pretty quickly. So I've enjoyed using this so far. I think the one of the things that's really fascinating to me is the difference in the feel of the build and materials compared to most of the other Fujifilm cameras. And I don't mean this in a bad way at all. I think it's because of the smooth finish. Now, granted, this is just a black X-Pro2. The other X-Pro cameras may have a different feel to them. I don't know. But this one has like a smooth black finish, metal smooth black finish, that out of all the Fujifilm cameras I've tried so far, this feels, if I just close my eyes and feel all the materials and everything about like that, it feels like a film camera almost more than any of the other ones that I've tried. Then that doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean anything for image quality and whatnot. That's just an indication of design and the materials they've chosen and all those decisions that they made. I think that's what they were going for. They wanted a vintage film camera type vibe, and I think they definitely achieved that. So all this is stuff that people have said for years and years. I'm just new to this camera, so I'm talking about it as a new user, someone who hasn't experienced this before. But it is a fantastic camera, and I will continue to make more videos of it. I just want to talk about a couple more things on this video because one thing that I keep coming back to, like I talked about earlier in this video, is if the EVF is how I use this camera most of the time, which I'm fine with, not a huge deal, then is it offering me more than what my other cameras are, XH1, XT4, so on and so on? Is the form factor unique enough? Does that give me something more that the others don't? You know, because image quality wise, the XH1 and X-Pro2 have pretty much the same internals, the same sensor, the same processor, that type of thing. So essentially the image quality is identical. So I just keep debating on what's the advantage of using the X-Pro2 over these other cameras. Now there's differences in sizes and whatnot, but not a huge deal where I feel like, you know, where I'm saving a ton of space. With my manual focus lenses on this camera, like I said, I've been using the EVF. But let me step back a second. Let's talk about my experience with the OBF for a second. When I'm using the Fujifilm 35 f2 or the 23 f2, I'm getting used to the OBF. I'm getting used to the parallax aspect of this of using an OBF on a rangefinder style camera. So that I'm getting used to. But I don't always use those lenses. I like to throw on my TT Artisan or my 7 Artisan lenses or my adapted Nikon lenses. And I love to use manual focus. So in that case, I switch it over to the EVF. And that's where I feel like I start to compromise a little bit. The EVF is not the same as I experience on my XH1 or XT4. Now, I'm not saying it's horrible, but I'm saying I notice there's a difference. There's a difference in what I'm seeing. So that's one aspect for me that makes it would make it difficult for me to say, okay, I'm going to go all in on the X-Pro2 and sell my other cameras or something like that. It would make it kind of difficult because the EVF is an important aspect on these cameras for me. Now, which leads to my main question, one of my main questions of this video, and I hope there's some people that can kind of speak about their experiences. When comparing the OBF, the optical viewfinder, and the electronic viewfinder between the X-Pro2 and the X-Pro3, which one do you prefer? Now, I've heard some people prefer the OVF of the X-Pro2 over the X-Pro3, the OVF. But in terms of the EVF, I've heard some people prefer the X-Pro3 over the X-Pro2. Now, I could be completely wrong on both of those assessments, so that's where I need your guys' feedback. Anyone who's tried both cameras, what's the difference between the OVF on both and the EVF on both? Because my thinking is, if that's kind of like one of my main little hiccups, is I feel like I'm compromising a little bit using the EVF on this camera, then maybe that little hiccup or that little obstacle would be overcome if I tried the X-Pro3, and then that camera might be more enticing to use regularly over my XH1 or some of these other cameras, because it's delivering that high quality EVF experience that I've kind of become accustomed to. The interesting thing is, just like always, I'm comparing things. And whenever you compare two cameras, whether they're from the same brand or different brands, there's good and bad about that. Because if this was the only camera I have, I probably wouldn't even take time to talk about this stuff. I'd be using it and loving it and be totally fine. But the reality is, I'm in this situation where I am kind of comparing, because I do want to learn about what the X-Pro2, X-Pro3 has to offer. So I am going to compare, and I'm going to make decisions based off these comparisons, based off some of your guys' feedback. And then that way I'll decide whether the X-Pro3 is a worthy investment down the line, or whether maybe this form factor just isn't for me. But I don't think it's not just the form factor. Like I said, it's right now I'm really thinking about the EVF as one of the deciding factors here. But I don't want to make this video too long. I'm trying to keep some of these videos shorter. I just want to kind of give an update on my experience using the X-Pro2. So far, really, I mean, I've loved using it. I'm going to continue to use it for at least a little while until I decide which cameras to keep, which cameras to get rid of. Right now I have 4 Fujifilm cameras, but mainly for the purpose, I'm still testing this one. And I mean testing, meaning trying this out, seeing if it's for me, seeing if it's going to be a long-term camera in my kit or not. I'm trying to keep two around constantly. That is one mainly for video, one mainly for photos. So right now that's XH1 and XT4. If sometime down the line I get like a Blackmagic camera or the Sigma FP or something that's more video centric, then that might change what I decide to keep on the photography side. But right now, I'm not going to keep all of these. I'm testing them all out, seeing what I like, what I don't like, and seeing what's going to work for me in the long run. And there's always going to be this, revolving door of cameras that come in and out of my possession because of this YouTube channel, because of my blog. I like testing stuff out and then sharing with you guys what I found out and what has worked for me and what hasn't. I think that's it for now. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm still shooting with the X-Pro2 and I've been enjoying it so far. But because I've been shooting with some manual lenses, this is the autofocus. This is the 35 f2, fantastic lens, one of my favorites. But I've been shooting with some autofocus manual focus lenses, and when I do that, I'm utilizing the EVF a lot more. And for me, the window on this, whether it's EVF or OVF, is just slightly small. I don't know if it's small, but it's a little less. It's just not quite as easy to see as some of the other cameras. So there's just enough of a difference that it's noticeable. But I have enjoyed it, and I will continue to use it to see what I can make with it. I'm going to keep rotating my lenses on it, and see what other images I can create. I'm excited to see what they do with the X-Pro4. I feel like they're to a certain aspect that they're listening to some feedback. So hopefully they'll incorporate some changes. But from what I can tell, the X-Pro3 looks pretty amazing. So I don't know what exactly they would improve upon. But please, if you have used both X-Pro2, X-Pro3, let me know the biggest differences that you found. And if you switch from the X-Pro2 to the X-Pro3, what do you miss? What do you regret or what do you wish you could get back from the X Pro 2? I think that's some important information that that could help me and other people that read the comments. So I guess that's it for now for a little update on the X Pro 2, asking about the differences between this and the X Pro 3 from some users that have used both. So that's it for now. Thanks again as always, guys. I'll talk to you soon.